Jesus freak here, and there are some variations between some texts of the King James Version, and this is an edition that I had worked on for a few years, a sort of semi-critical edition, and differs in some respects from the more common Cambridge text. It's kind of a mishmash based on my own editing of the Cambridge text, the Scrivener text, and mostly it's the 1611, which I re-edited. Now, there's a few things peculiar to my editing, and I'll admit this. Now, because I'm using links, the italics don't show up. Now, Scrivener believed this was an actual translation error. Hebrews 10:23. I think it was a typo. You know how in those days these typographical errors were very common, simply because of the complexity of printing in those eras. So the italics do show up. They show up as bold. Anyway, I believe that in these verses, the hope reading like Scrivener and I have is the correct one, because there's a pattern here which should look familiar. By the way, this is one of the reasons I believe Paul had a hand in writing the letter to the Hebrews. I also tend to go with the theory of typographical error for this verse. Matthew 23:24. And here's a peculiarity that you'll find in Scrivener's, you'll find in mine, but you won't find in most current editions. Alright. The name Esai appears in how it was originally published in 1611. And I do believe this is deliberate, since that's the name used in some earlier translations and also in the Apocrypha of the King James Version to refer to Isaiah. Obviously, this comes from the Greek Esaias, which you see in the New Testament. I believe it's, a mistake, but I left it intact, although I amended the spelling for consistency. there's a few other things, like, for example, this is actually correct. This is the word that was there in 1611. It was changed to gins in more recent versions, editions. But you'll find it's correctly supposed to be grins is in fact the word that's in there in 1611. And grins you'll find also in the Scrivener. You'll find, you can tell by this, first the Esai thing and this grin thing, that we're dealing with a version that's not based on the 1769 revision, or not entirely. Just thought I'd mention this, just because. Jesus, freak out.